Welcome to the Costa PowerShade installation video. This video will walk you through the step-by-step process needed to install our Costa PowerShades. To start, here's a list of tools you will need for the installation. Feel free to pause or rewind the video at any time if you need a moment to get your bearings. It's recommended that you watch the whole video all the way through at least once before you try to begin following along. For this installation, we'll start by measuring the width and height of the space in which we will be installing the shade. For shades that will be surface mounted, we recommend adding 2.5 inches per side or 5 inches overall. Vertically, we recommend adding 10 inches to the overall height so that the installation hides the hem bar and any pile or weather stripping from view. For inside the jamb mounts, when it's not possible to screw in the tracks from front to back, we recommend using an L bracket. The measurement technique is the same, but you would deduct 1/4 inch from each side to account for the width of the brackets. Please keep in mind to measure top, bottom, and middle to get the shortest point. Make sure to write down these measurements as they will be needed later. Once you've measured, you can begin unboxing the shade unit. Carefully cut the packaging coils and remove the V-board. You may need to flip the box to access the tape securing the cardboard. Cut the tape and remove the cardboard. During this process, be careful not to damage the housing or the screen. Remove the protective foam and place the hood and the roller tube on the sawhorses. Once the unit is unpacked, measure the hood to confirm that the measurements match the measurements of the installation space. If the measurements correspond, you can proceed by removing the hood screws from both ends of the unit. There should be 2 screws in total. Be sure to keep these screws somewhere safe, as you will need to replace them toward the end of the installation. Next, remove the hood cover from the hood and place it nearby. You are then free to remove the shade from inside the hood, and remove the plastic that surrounds the shade itself. From here, you will be drilling the mounting holes for the shade hood. Make sure to use the right screw depending on the material you will be mounting to. For this installation, we are using lags for wood studs. You can use the head of the screw to guide your spacing. Just make sure to leave enough room for the shade to fit in the hood, and never put a screw in the center of the hood where the screw head could rub against the fabric. The hood needs at least 3 holes, 1 on each end and 1 in the middle, but you may need more depending on the length of the shade. Once you've drilled your holes, be sure to check that the screws don't slip through before you proceed to the next step. After removing any metal debris and cleaning the work area, unroll the shade and place the roller tube on top of the unrolled length. Using the Velcro, carefully align the end of the shade with a white line on the tube. The shade material will extend approximately 1 inch past the tube on each side. Attach the shade to the roller tube and work your way down to the end of the tube. Be sure to keep the shade as flush as possible and work out any ripples that form along the way. Once the shade has been attached, you can insert the roller tube into the hood. From here, measure the distance from the end of the hood to the shade on both sides. The idea here is that these measurements should match. If they don't match, that means the shade needs to be moved down the length of the roller to center it with a roller tube. Adjust the shade by the needed measurement and reattach it to the tube. Once this is done, reattach the tube to the housing and double-check the measurements. If the measurements correspond, remove the tube from the hood and unroll the screen as demonstrated here. As you unroll the screen, you can roll the roller tube in the opposite direction to wind the screen around the tube. Make sure to keep the screen rolled as straight as possible to avoid any offset, and be sure to leave at least 12 inches of screen unrolled. Once this is completed, you'll want to prepare to mount the hood. For this step, we will start by measuring and marking the hood placement. Use a level to make sure you are level with the ground, and make a mark using the measurements we confirmed in the beginning. Do this on both sides. After you have your marks, you can place the hood in the correct position. Use the width measurement from before. Here we know that the hood should go around 2.5 inches past the outside of the garage, so we'll adjust the placement to make sure that matches our measurement. Once the hood is in the right position, we can drill the holes and insert the screws. Use the holes we already drilled as guides and drill holes into the mounting surface. Make sure you are hitting studs or use appropriate anchors. Remember, you will have a minimum of 3 holes. After the hood is secure, you are free to install the roller. To do this, slide the idle side of the roller with fabric into the hole on the hood. The motor mount should then just slot in. A safety pin then slides in to secure the shade. Here we've already removed the pin, but you will have to remove the pin from the motor mount before you insert the shade. Before removing your hands from the shade, make sure the hood and roller are secure and can fully support the weight. Once the shade unit is secure, you can proceed with the guide tracks. You will need to measure from the ground to the bottom of the unit. Although the shade should be level, the ground may not be, so be sure to measure both sides just in case. With these measurements, you can cut the guide tracks to the right size. Here we are doing them together, but you may need to do yours separately. Once cut, you can remove the covers from the track, but be careful not to bend them too much. After you do this, drill 3 mounting holes and attach the end covers to the cut end of the track. Now you are ready to install the tracks. Start by inserting the end of the zipper from the fabric into the track and power cable into the top if installing the powered side. Make sure that the bottom of the track is flush with the outside of the installation space. Put tension on the shade and drill guide holes for the top screw and insert the screw. From here you can attach a temporary power cable and supply power to the shade. Using the remote, fully extend the shade all the way to the end of the fabric so that the roller tube is exposed, and pull down any remaining fabric so that the fabric is even from top to bottom. Then allow the motor to re-roll the shade while guiding the excess length into the hood. This process is important to keep the fabric from telescoping side to side as it rolls up. Once you've done this, you can proceed to install the second track on the other side using the same technique as before. Once the top screw is installed, lower the shade, double-check that the guide track is supporting the tension, and install the bottom screw. Do this for both sides and then install the middle screws. Make sure not to over-torque the screws. The tracks need to have a bit of movement. Now that you've fully installed the shade unit, you can use the remote to test the shade and set the top limit and then program the bottom limit. Refer to the remote manual instructions for this procedure. If everything checks out, you can reinstall the track covers. They should just pop back into place, but be careful not to damage them as you do this. Once they are back in place, you can install the hood cover back on the shade unit. Use the screws you kept from earlier to do this. And that's it, the PowerScreen is fully installed. Be sure to go back and watch any sections that might not be clear to you, and ask your supervisor if you have any questions.